Sahana bhavatu sahanau bhunaktu saha viryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti. So in the last class, we discussed about this chronology of action, which we will be taking it up in detail today. So I thought we will cover this chapter first. So we have two more topics. So we are in chapter 5. It's a very important chapter for us because the first thing we do is we act in the world. Now, it is important to understand how do we go about with action? What is right action? What is wrong action? What defines an action as right or wrong? How should we function? The topic we'll be taking up today is renunciation in action. Very interesting idea. You don't renounce action, you don't run away from action. But while acting, how to maintain that detachment is what Vedanta is talking about. And then we will be talking about the three types of action. So here we're talking about exigency of action, the perfection in action. So action is inevitable. That's the first topic we did, where we discussed that you have to act. Act we must, we should. We cannot run away from activity. Now, the question is, how do we make sure that we optimize our quality of action? In other words, there has to be a purpose in action. Action cannot become mechanical. Action cannot become for the sake of the society, for the world. You're doing something because other people told me to do something. I am in a position, so I'm forced to do in a particular way. That can't be the way to conduct myself. I cannot sustain myself in that way. That kind of activity will drain me automatically. It takes away my energy, and I am putting my effort in the wrong place. It's not necessary. So what they're saying is that action is important, but how do we act is very important. In other words, action has to be used as a way for transformation, to grow as a person, as a better human being. Every day, from morning till evening, we have an opportunity called life. And in life, we have an opportunity to apply ourselves, to function differently. Remember, it was, I think, Einstein who says that if you want to change anything in future, you cannot be doing the same thing repeatedly. You can't be doing the same thing today. If I want to make a difference in the future, I have to make a difference today, now, here. So action is the only way where I can make a difference. So it comes down to, how do I act? What is the right way of acting? Spirituality is not about running away from activity, but it's about knowing how to optimize our actions, how to understand our activity. So the action is inevitable. Swami Vivekananda says, go play football. Somebody asked him for a spiritual lesson. He says, first, be dynamic, be active. That's the first criteria to be spiritual. It's not about running away, moving away from responsibility, obligation. And in fact, in the Upanishad, one of the highest scriptures, they talk about fitness. Physical fitness is a very important part which is being covered in the scripture. Because unless and until I'm physically fit, how can I do anything at the subtler level of the personality? Unless and until I'm taking care of the gross level of the personality, the subtle is not possible. So it is the highest obligation to take care of my physical body. May my limbs be fine. One of the invocation we do in the Upanishad, it says, may my limbs be fine, fit. Meaning, let me be physically dynamic in life. Only when I am able to handle myself at the physical level, which has to come from the subtler level, which is at the level of the mind and the intellect. Of course, the intellect which guides the mind. People take membership for gym, and they give annual membership. They promote annual membership or a long-term membership because even they know that the difficulty is that people will not be able to keep consistency. Out of 365 days, how many days we really will be going to the gym will be hardly few because it is the mind which makes it difficult to pursue something every day, to maintain consistency in action. So it is the intellect which keeps the consistency going. So automatically, you're operating at the deeper level of the personality. When you're operating at the physical level, mere physical level, by now we are familiar with the body, mind, and the intellect. In other sessions, we'll go in detail about that. So if you're operating at mere physical level of the personality, there is a chance of more affectation. You're more affected by weather, by people, by so many things happening around us. When you go deeper in your personality, which is at the emotional level of the personality, you are better off than merely getting carried away by the physical or the environmental things. But still, you get affected at the level of the mind. You get attached, you get affected. When you operate at the deeper level, which is at the intellectual level, level of thinking, logic, understanding, automatically you are in better control of your personality. So action has to be coming from deeper level of the personality. Mere action means nothing. But moment it is deeper, it becomes more meaningful, it becomes more impactful. And the self-realized masters, they were operating at the spiritual level, the deepest level. And that's the reason that their impact in the society is so deep. Can be Christ or Prophet Muhammad or Krishna or all these masters, since they were operating at the deepest level, the spiritual level, automatically the impact of society was much, much more. So if we want to serve the society, if we want to do good for the society, we need to develop our personality, go deeper within ourselves, change ourselves to change the world. That's the only way to change. So be dynamic. That was the action is inevitable, where he speaks about activity and how to conduct ourselves in the right way possible. And then we talk about the value of action. What is the importance, the value we give to action? Your motto in life should be to strive, to struggle, not to succeed. Very interesting quotation, which Sir says, focus on the how can I be dynamic, right? Your life should be to strive, to struggle, not to take the easy way out, not to go the mind likes to be comfortable in the comfort zone. It is the intellect which requires to go through it is okay to go through difficulty with pleasure. It's called titiksha in Sanskrit. So your life mottos should be to strive, to struggle. You're putting that effort, you're going out of the way, you're genuinely connecting, you want to help, contribute. But the focus is not to succeed. The whole idea is not, will I succeed or not? The whole focus is on putting the right effort in the present action. Your motto in life should be to strive, to struggle, not to succeed. So life is enriched by accomplishment of right action rather than outward success or failure. And then surrender to the total plan of nature, thy will be done, not my will be done. It's in the, we used to do this in convent, I studied in convent, we used to have this as a prayer, thy will be done, not my will be done. One of the lines is to be. So in Hindi, we say, Tera tujhko arpan, kya lage hai mera. That attitude of it's yours, there's a totality which is making which is making me do certain things. Just do the best of my ability, but there is nothing to take from it. That's what it's meant by Tera tujhko arpan. I dedicate yours to you. That's what it literally means. What is there in in it? That attitude in life. So that keeps us peaceful. The other thing is to take responsibility, that become a Frankenstein. I think it was here in this topic we covered. What happens is we take up duty as, I have to do it. And that in that process, it becomes a Frankenstein. Frankenstein was uh, a scientist designed a robot, and he called it Frankenstein. And what happened was that the robot started dictating terms on the scientist, and that's why it became a very popular phrase. Don't make it a Frankenstein. Meaning, we created duties and obligation, and now it has become something we are overpowered by. So it dictates terms on us. We are completely caught up with it. If I don't do it, it will not happen. So relax. The world can take care of itself. It doesn't need any one of us to function. And nature knows how to conduct itself. We have a responsibility, we have an obligation. Let's do our part the best of our ability. No prefix, no suffix. That is pure action. Purity's action is not coloring it with any sort of motive, intention in it. So when we are able to take away those negative factors from action, what remains is pure action. You just perform, do the needful. There is no agenda, there is no personal agenda, there is no nothing, no axe to grind, no prefix, no suffix. Just do it. That attitude in life helps us to perform, be dynamic, and be peaceful. So, value of action is performed with the spirit of detachment that leads to the state of perfection. This is the value we need to give to action. What is the purpose of action? What is the importance of action? Why is action so important? Not because only if I act, I will be able to accumulate the world. I can have more wealth, name, fame, power, position, whatever in the world. That's not the reason to give importance to action, because they are temporary, they're ephemeral. There's no point in investing ourselves into that. You may have it, it's automatic thing. It will come automatically. If you work in a particular way, if you are selfless, you are service oriented, you are helping the society, automatically you'll be known, you will be popular, you will be taken care of. All that is immaterial. The focus is action performed in the spirit of detachment. When you're able to perform pure action detachedly, objectively, that is evolutionary action. That is right action. And that's what he's saying. That's what we covered in the earlier topic. And then we talked about the chronology of action, where it talks about the sequence of action. This particular topic we will be taking up in the later phase of the class. So we want to cover the rest of it. It's a very, very important part of action, where it explains the sequence of action. What it says is, vasana, your inherent fundamental nature, produces thoughts, which is nothing but your first manifestation of the your nature, and next it becomes desire, and then it aggravates or grossifies into action. So in the next phase, we will discuss this in detail. And that's what we discussed in the chronology of action. Vasana, we discussed earlier, is the fundamental basic nature you're made up of. And then comes down to the renunciation in action. Today's topic we are going to talk is renunciation in action. Now, very interesting choice of word. It is renunciation in action, not renunciation of action. Spirituality is not about running away from action. It is about acting in a way that it doesn't uh, leave a mark. Birds flying versus when a bird is flying, it doesn't leave a mark, footprint. Similarly, in life, we need to act in a way that it frees us. it helps us to grow, evolve as a person, as a human. That's the right way of functioning. So renunciation has to be while acting. Running away from action doesn't give us renunciation. And that's the topic. Thought, desire, and action emanate from vasanas, like the video projection from the compact disc. Every being acts according to its own vasanas. Vasana is fundamental nature, what you are made up of, the core stuff. The unmanifested desires is called as vasanas. A human alone among all living beings has a choice of action. Other living creatures are denied the freedom to act apart from their inherent nature. A tiger is ferocious, it can never be meek and mild, it just strike and kill. Whereas a cow is docile, by nature far from destructive. Animals does live through a choiceless pattern of life. An animal fulfills its vasanas in the realm of activities into which it is born. So there is a pattern of life. For an animal, they are born, they exist, and they die. And their life is a pre-programmed pattern. So they manifest their vasanas and they are moving, and that's how they act, right? In the case of a human alone, there is a choice of action. Human alone have this ability to modify our activity, improve or make it negative, positive or negative. Either way, we have a choice. Humans alone have this choice. The example he gave is a tiger doesn't have a choice, meaning it cannot become ferocious. It is ferocious by nature, right? It is eating meat by nature. It cannot become a vegetarian even if food is not available. It cannot change its pattern of life. A cow is meek and mild. It is living on vegetation. Even if there is no food available, it can't change its pattern. It can't consciously choose to change its pattern of life, right or wrong. It is living in a particular way. That is an animal life, where they are born, they exist in a particular way, and they die. However, humans alone have the ability to choose every moment of our life. So from morning till night, from day one, we have this choice in life. Now the question is, how do we choose? So following this determined course, an animal neither evolves nor devolves. So animal is born, they exist, they die based on their pattern, and they are neither evolving nor devolving. They stay in their own way. But a human enjoys a freedom of action. He could be most sacrificial to the society or be extremely harmful. He could consciously exhaust his vasanas and rise to the greatest height of perfection, or accumulate vasanas and sink to the lower depth of degradation. The choice of evolving or devolving is rendered possible because human possesses a unique faculty of self-effort. Remember, this is a very important portion, an aspect. What is self-effort? Self-effort is the ability to choose independent of your vasanas. What is vasana? Vasana is your inherent nature, a tendency. Each one is unique because of our vasanas. Even in identical twins, they are distinct and different. They are unique. What makes them unique, different, is the bundle of vasanas, which is unmanifested desires they are born with, which eventually manifests, right? Now, naturally, we function according to our fundamental nature. A doctor, let's say you give a toy to a child has an engineering tendency. From childhood, it will keep on opening it, trying to understand the mechanism behind it and the rest of it. You give the same toy to another child, she will play with other people. She will look for people to enjoy the game. So she has an independent nature. There are children who likes to have can be interested in medicine. From childhood, it will be shown, or business, it will be seen the way that tendencies are. That's your fundamental nature. Okay, that's called vasanas. Now, what they're saying in this topic is very important is there is a concept of self-effort called purushartha in Sanskrit. Self-effort is the ability to act independent of your vasanas. So that gives you the freedom. That is the uniqueness of a human being. We need to understand how unique a human is. There are more than 30 million living beings in the world, right? Known, perhaps there's more unknown. Out of those, one is a human being. One human being versus the rest of living beings. Human is the best of creation. And what makes them best, what makes us best is the ability to think, which is the intellect. Additionally, the ability to choose, self-effort. No other being has this capacity to adapt, to change, to grow, to evolve. So self-effort, simply put, I'm repeating again, very important point, write down as a definition, self-effort is the ability to choose. That's the definition of self-effort. Very simple, keep it simple. Self-effort is just the ability to choose. Independent of your vasanas. I'm just extending it. Self-effort is the ability to choose independent of your vasanas. Meaning, all of us have the capacity to make a choice which need not be covered by the past. In other words, a drunkard, he has been drinking for several years, he can choose not to drink, right? So he has a self-effort. He may decide that, no, today onwards, I will stop drinking. I'm not going to drink. So he has a capacity to stop moving. So his nature was drinking. If he would have been going according to that, he will keep on drinking the rest of his life. But it's not so. Our nature changes because we have the ability to make the change. And that's what we're talking about, the capacity to change, which is independent of your vasanas. Yes, Shari.
Sorry. What if, that's exactly what I was going to ask you about the drunkard. But because vasanas, we don't know how long it may be impacting our lives, right? What if that drinking vasana was only for 10 years and then that's why he's made the choice? Do you know what I mean? Like vasanas don't have to last an entire lifespan of a human, right?
No, so vasana is your personality. You're born with a particular vasana. So that defines your fundamental personality. If you're selfish, unselfish, sattvic, rajasic, tamasic, different type of personality you may have, that is defined by your vasana, right? Your inherent nature, which you're born with, right? Then we are talking about how do you conduct yourself in life. So let's say you've been conducting yourself, you come across an experience and you started indulging in that. A drinking person, he came across drinking, and from childhood or from college days, he's got into it. And at that moment, he didn't think about it will become a weakness in his personality, and the rest of it, he got addicted to it. Now, the vasana, he doesn't have vasana for drinking. It's just that he picked up as a nature in the system. He found it convenient, and he was through that he was looking for happiness, and for all purpose he got into it. So the point is, he kept on acting in a particular way, and he became addicted to it. Now, the point here they are making is, if there was no capacity to change, if humans also were as an animal, then you are born, you exist, you die. In other words, you keep on drinking throughout your life. If I'm drinking from childhood, I'll be drinking throughout my life and I die. It's not so. It can be any aspect, either way. It's not so. People change. And that is the ability which is not seen in animals. That's the differences we are making, right? So self-effort is that ability we have as a human to change, to choose, and that choice can make a change. So what Vedanta is saying is make the choices wisely. See, not all choices are as simple as choosing a menu. So since our choices are critical, it can change our future. So make the choice wisely. So to answer your question, Shireen, it's possible that the person has got into the addiction of drugs or any alcohol or whatever. How can he get over that? By using the effort in the right way. See, there's a difference between effort and effect. The effort is what we need to put. Effect is, will he stop drinking? How long will it take for him to stop drinking? That is the effect. That depends upon his past. There are variables in that. Okay, let's make it simple. Imagine a white wall, a yellow wall. Okay, I have to paint it blue. Yellow wall, paint it blue. Now, I take a bucket of paint, blue paint, and I start painting. First strike, what do I see? First strike, what do I see? It will be different color. It's a green. Okay. So I have a color, yellow. I have to paint it blue. When I do the first stroke, it comes out to be green. Neither blue nor yellow. Right. Now, I keep on painting. Second stroke, third stroke, it becomes greenish blue, bluish green. And then it goes to blue and darker blue. Right. And after 10, 12 strokes, it becomes blue. Now, if it is a white wall, earlier it was yellow wall. Now it is a white wall. I have to make it blue. First stroke, light blue. Second stroke, deeper. Third stroke, I got it. Right? So the past has an impact in life. Past is yellow wall. Present, you have an ability to choose. Self-effort is the bucket of blue paint. Right? Putting that effort doesn't mean the effect will come immediately, because the effect is dependent on your past as well. So if you ask how long will it take for that the wall to become blue, depends. If it is dark black wall, it will take much, much longer. Right? So what they are talking about is the self-effort. At all times, all of us, it can be a terrorist or a saint, anyone, wherever he or she be, all of us have that ability to choose. Right? Vedanta is saying, choose wisely. We need to apply ourselves, understand that we have the choice, make a right choice so that you can progress. That action is helping you to progress in life. Huri, sorry, you have something? Right. So self-effort is the freedom of action independent of the vasanas. So self-effort is the ability to choose. Why I said that, I repeated it so many times, because self-effort doesn't mean that you'll be doing right action or wrong action. Okay. Self-effort simply says that you have a capacity to choose. Now, based on the type of choice you're making, your effect will be right or wrong. All human beings have this ability to choose. Now, Vedanta is saying, since you have the ability to choose, choose wisely. That's all they are saying. Choose with your intellect, with understanding, with knowledge, right? So that it is better for you in long term. So the present vasana set a pattern of one's life, but self-effort can modify or change the pattern. There is a prerogative a human being alone enjoys. Exercising the choice of action, you must first select a field of activity conducive to your vasanas. It's called Svadharma. Very important point here is to note is we need to choose our action based on Swadharma. Swa means one's own, Dharma means nature. The choice of, we are talking about self-effort. You have a capacity. Now, how do you exercise the self-effort? Is from a beginning, as we are growing up, we need to choose our activity based on our Swadharma, ability to, what is my nature? What is my talent? What is my ability? Nothing is right and wrong. It is all based on my capacity and ability, talent. So that is Swadharma. Never take up a paradharmic field of activity, even if it is convenient. Scriptures, they very strongly, they put it across. They say that never ever even get into a paradharmic field of activity because it is going to make you agitated and disturbed. So this is what happens. It can be any field, we take up a thing which is convenient. Let's say a student, my friend, I remember my school friend, he was a engineer, he was interested in engineering, and he was bright, and he gave the exam for engineering, but his parents were doctors. Both the father, mother, both were doctors, and they had a hospital. And so the whole idea was only son, he has to become a doctor. There was no choice for him. And Indian family, you're told what to be, right? And he qualified for engineering, and then father said, no, no nonsense. You have to go for being a doctor, medical line. So he was forced to take up medicine, and he failed in medicine. He could not qualify, or so of course they paid more money and they got him admitted. He still failed, and father said, doesn't matter. We spent no 1 year. You're spending 2 year each of the level, which is good. You're consolidating more. So long and short, he became a doctor, and even now he's a doctor in my hometown, where he's not happy. The point is, when you take a paradharmic activity, because it is conducive or it is forced on, whatever the peer pressure and what we say, eventually it becomes detrimental for the person. And that's what he means by saying, if while paradharmic activity is detrimental, causing you regress, devolve, people commit the fundamental mistake of choosing an alien field of activity because they have inherited it or is just convenient for them to do so. The scripture warns you against this error in life. It will not be in your interest to choose a field of activity alien to your nature, while choosing a field compatible to your nature would promote your material and spiritual growth. It's like a headwind and the tailwind. When you're flying, when you have a headwind, there's a it takes more time. So imagine your own personality is against what you're doing. So automatically there is a more friction in the personality. You're fighting against the odds. And the tailwind is you get a support. So automatically you do better in that field. Having chosen the appropriate field, you must execute the right action in life. This is important since you are given the choice of action. The general trend in human activity is to indulge in personal feeling. Attraction or repulsion seems to initiate your actions. You ought not to let your likes and dislikes determine your life activities. There is a grave error in letting your emotions and feeling take over. Likes and dislikes manifest without discretion could turn out to be your worst enemy. If you feed them indiscriminately, you could destruction. The most valuable result of all education is the ability to make yourself do the thing you have to do when it ought to be done, whether you like it or not. It is the first lesson that ought to be learned, and however early a person's training begins, it is probably the last lesson a person learns thoroughly. Very, very important point to note. The, the most valuable result of all education is to ability to do what you ought to do when it has to be done. You do perform action not because you like to do it, or you avoid action not because you dislike to do it, but this has to be done. Full stop. So Satan tried to tempt Christ with all sorts of worldly attraction to lure him away from spiritual stance. Christ would have nothing to do with those temptations. His response to Satan turned out to be a great message to humanity. Get thee behind me, Satan. I will have none at thy hands. So when you make choices based on the mind, you tend to get into an area which you do not want, you have not planned for. You don't know which direction you're going. The problem with mind is it has no direction, no dimension. So when you choose, remember we talked about choices. When you make choices based on your mind, you don't know which direction you're going. You have no clarity of the action. And that's why you keep doubting yourself. That's why there's a problem. You keep on asking. You go to palmist, to astrologer. Imagine a soothsayer. All this is happening because I am not confident about my action. A student who is studying thoroughly for the exam, he is not bothered by result. He is confident in his own preparation, so he knows he will be a topper. He'll be good, getting good marks. If I have not prepared well, automatically doubt comes. So Vedanta helps us to be clear about our course of action. You know your intention, you know what you're doing, why you're doing. So good or bad actions have to do with the state of the mind and not with your gross physical actions. So reform yourself, therefore, it is not the body, but your mind that has to be rehabilitated, reconstructed. In a real life incident, a man pulled out a automatic in a restaurant, mercilessly shot down several people. Another person behind him chanced to give a gun with him, have a gun with him. He shot the killer point blank. Now, it is the intention which makes the action virtuous or vicious. Right? Important point to note. It is not action. What happens is we go merely by action. A person seems to be doing a lot of charity, but he may be doing it for his name, fame. He wants popularity. He wants something out of it. That's not giving. That's not sharing. That's not charity. So action per se doesn't mean anything. Here is the example he gives is a person is in a restaurant. It actually happened in Australia. There was a shooting where a person came inside the restaurant and started shooting. And another person, he was in an army man. He had a revolver and he took the gun and he shot the shooter point blank. Now, both of them were shooting. Action was same. One was saving life, one was taking life. That's the difference in the intention. So that makes it virtuous or vicious, depending upon the intention behind the action. So renunciation in action. Remember the word thought was. So look at the world as a witness. It becomes a source of enjoyment. Get entangled in the activities of the world, it turns out to be misery. When you are watching a movie, what makes the movie enjoyable is your detachment, your objectivity in it. It can be Hamlet, it can be Macbeth. Why do I enjoy that? Because I am not part of it. Right? If I be the part of it, can I still enjoy it the same way? That's what Vedanta is teaching us. Anything and everything can happen around us. How to remain stable while going through all the experiences around us. That stability comes through the knowledge. Right? And then the next topic is 3 types of action. This is an interesting portion. So the 3 types of actions are selfish, unselfish, selfless, right? So the lowest action is selfish, self-centered action. A meets B is thinking in terms of what can I get from the other person. There's motive, there's agenda, there is something, some axe to grind out of that equation, right? Me, myself, self-centered activity. What they're saying is, when we function in such a way, that action is devolutionary. Action, a selfish action, is devolutionary. It agitates you, it disturbs you, it is not progressive for yourself or others. So how do we go about? The second type of action is unselfish action. A meets B is in thinking in terms of how can I contribute myself for others? What can I do? How can I help? That attitude in life makes it unselfish. You may do, may not do it, but you have a genuine intention to help, to serve, to add value for others in others' life. That attitude makes it unselfish, driven by unselfish desire. And the third is selfless action. This is a difficult one. So selfless action is not driven by any desire. So when you are working, when you are acting, what am I working for? If I am doing it for my benefit, it is selfish. If I am doing it to benefit others, it is unselfish. If I'm merely doing it for the sake of doing it, it is selfless action. Sun gives vitality. It has no motive. So it is merely doing according to its nature. That is selfless action. So learn from nature. Impersonal work like the sun, moon, flower, river, no ego, no individuality in the equation. You just do what ought to be done. So active without desire, action without desire. That's a proof that the work continues. So you see children who are, it is your worries of the past and the anxiety for the future which drains your energy. Why do we get tired in work and action? It is not action per se. It is the selfish way of acting. When we work selfishly, automatically we get tired. The mind's tendency is to get worried in the past, anxiety for the future, all put together. We are not able to function. And that's where you see children have so much of energy, bristling with energy. Physically, they are weaker than us. But how come they have so much of energy? It's because they have no worries of the past. They don't have any anxiety for the future. They're in the present. Even if you force them worries and anxiety, they don't sustain. They don't take it forward. They forget about it and then move on. So as a human, we need to be in control of our desires. So move from selfish to unselfish to selfless. That's the progression. Right? That's a growth. So we need to be mindful of wherever there is a personal agenda in the equation, we try to take away that personal motive in it and with knowledge and understanding and make it unselfish. And wherever there is an unselfishness, give knowledge with understanding. Who am I to do whatever has to be done? Just do it and move on. So that is how you're countering or you're moving from one level to the other level. You can't skip a level, but you have to move from one to another. Now, this is the topic we had. Now, what is interesting is this completes the chapter, which is exigency of action. I'll go back to the chronology of action, which I mentioned that we will be taking up in detail. So chronology of action, what he's saying is, it's a very interesting portion. It's important that we revisit this idea. So vasana creates thought, thought creates desire, desire creates action. This is the simple equation. This is the chronology of action. Now, the problem factor in this is, what is happening is that in the bargain of creating action, I get into a loop of further creating vasanas. So vasana creates thought, right? Thought creates desire. So vasana is the unmanifested form, the root, the core, the fundamental nature. That manifests into thought, that further manifests into desire, and that into action. Simple example we did last time, just to give an understanding of it. Each one of us are different and we function according to our vasanas. So let's say a newspaper. If I have a sports nature, fundamentally I have an interest in sports. In the newspaper, I'll be looking for sports news, right? If I have a musical, cultural nature, automatically I'm looking for concerts happening around me and the rest of it. So my vasana is for sports. I have thought for sport. In my world, which is my newspaper I'm reading, I see for news which is regarding pertaining to sports. I create desire to watch the sport. I act on that desire. I go and watch it, either physically or on the television. If I have vasana for music, I have thought for music. All my world is according to that. I look for news, people, surroundings according to my nature. And I have desire for music. I look for concert. I end up acting on going for the concert. Action. So vasana produces thought, thought produces desire, desire produces action. This is the natural progression of chronology of action. Problem factor is that while acting, remember the topic we had was renunciation in action. What Vedanta is saying is, if we are not able to be detached while acting, that action further aggravates, collects, and becomes your nature, vasana. It becomes part of your personality. You start accumulating further more vasanas. And then the cycle again continues. It becomes thought, it needs expression, it needs to be act upon. And you act on certain things. Is it all? No. I further act to create further more vasanas. That is the loop we get caught up in. Remember the next topic we had, the idea we had was self-effort. Very interesting idea. Why it is given in this context, that is very interesting. This is a natural flow of chronology of action. Vasana becomes thought, thought becomes desire, desire becomes action. In other words, any action has to come from desire. Any desire has to come from thought. Thought flow is called as desire. Stronger thought flow is called desire, right? And any thought has to come from your fundamental nature. That's the database or the complete root source of your nature, the vasanas, just a name given. What Vedanta is saying is how to break this pattern, how to evolve, how to grow out of the pattern. You need to break at each level of the personality, of the expression. So if I have to break it, the first level to act, function, is at the level of action. So we discussed about 3 types of action. It's more like a summary, what we already covered. It's very useful to understand. This is what they're talking about. 3 types of actions are selfish, unselfish, and selfless. So mechanically, we keep acting on selfish desires, right? Which creates further desires, further actions, further vasanas, we are in a loop. So what is evolution? Move from selfish to unselfish. Start thinking for others. Action is the grossest manifestation, right? So it is easier to work on, to understand and do something about it. So find out, be conscious of the action, what sort of actions I'm performing. If it is selfish, why am I doing? And the rest of it, I'm analyzing it and thoughtful knowledge, understanding, and rest of it. Move from unselfish to selfless. This is the progressive way at the level of action, the gross level. At the level of desires, which is subtler, what do I do? We covered, if you remember, Svadharma. Understand your set of desires. The first level of operation is, this is my fundamental nature. This is my ability. This is my talent, my capacity. Not shying away from our nature. Right? Having understood our nature, create an ideal. Have a goal, have a purpose. Swadharma is my nature. I define my desire. This is my set of desires. How do I use this desire for benefiting a larger cause, larger set of people? That's when the ideal comes in. A goal, a purpose comes in, right? And then further down, I act on obligation. Do what ought to be done. No prefix, no suffix in action, right? I have an opportunity, I have a capacity to perform, just do my action without any expectation. That is the way I function at the level of desire. We're talking about how to break this pattern of chronology of action. So at the level of the gross level, be more conscious of my action and apply ourselves and move from selfish to unselfish to selfless. At the subtler level of the personality, at the level of desire, understand my desires, my set of desires, and then accordingly guide it. So this is my Swadharma. How do I use this Swadharma to contribute to the society, to the world, to others? How do I add value to others? That's where ideal comes in. What is the ideal? A goal beyond my selfish and self-centered interest. A higher purpose. A vision I keep. That defines my ideal. This is what I want to achieve. A sportsman playing for the country. A sportsman can have a swadharma for cricket, for any sports for that matter. He may choose to play for the country. That's ideal. Having chosen the ideal, playing for the country, his obligation is to do whatever ought to be done for that, towards achieving that goal, that ideal, which is beyond his self-centered interest of merely entertaining, playing cricket or the game for his enjoyment. It's not like that. He is using that talent to benefit, to add value, to do something better. That defines an ideal. That's at the level of desires. Furthermore, at the level of thought, one need to have a positive attitude in life. The right intention. Remember, we discussed about the right intention in life. No expectation. Be objective. So at the level of thought, how do I go about, how do I break the pattern of my doing things? Where do I put that effort, self-effort? Is by understanding my attitude, make it positive. Everything happens for good. Everything is progressive. How can I use this as an opportunity to grow as a person? Right? That is positive attitude. Have the right intention, no expectation from that action, and being objective about our activity. This is at the subtler level of the personality, thought. Right? The last is the level of vasana. Now, vasana is the subtlest level of our personality. We cannot do anything about our vasana. Vasana produces thought, produces desire, produces action. So it is easier to operate at the action level, difficult to operate at desire level. It needs more knowledge, more understanding. More difficult it is to operate at the thought level, which is much more coming from within your personality, the attitude you can carry at every aspect of life. Further difficult it is to operate at the vasana level. You really can't do anything. It is unmanifested desires. What can be done? Perhaps we did it earlier. It's called the gunas. Gunas means mental temperament. So these are the three gunas: sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva is grade A, where the mind is calm, composed, matured. It's able to handle pressure with that calm, with that easiness, cheerful attitude in life. That's a sattvic nature. Rajasic is a hurrying, rushing, worrying tendency of a person. Tamasic is lethargic, lazy attitude of a person, right? Not willing to put any effort. What is progress? Move from tamas to rajas and rajas to sattva. Wherever there is tamas in the personality, which is don't want to put any effort, start giving a motive for action. You don't want to get up in the morning, first thing in the morning, give an activity, give a reason. If I get up, I will have my favorite breakfast, whatever. You're giving a motive for that action, right? Creating rajas. From rajas, you move to sattva, which is once you get into activity, take out the motive in the action. This should be done as an obligation. You don't need any external reason to do it, right? That's how you are moving to sattva. Another aspect is whatever sattvic nature we have, it manifests from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. Whatever rajasic nature we have, it manifests from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and tamas 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. So promoting your sattvic nature is promoting sattva will be getting up in the morning, early hours of the morning, and trying to understand this knowledge, reflect on it. That attitude, that aspect in life makes it conducive for the vasana, the positive vasana, sattvic vasana to manifest. That's the best you can do. So at the level of vasana, you cannot really do anything. But it is important that we are able to operate, make it conducive for a sattvic nature to manifest, and then we make that sattva, whatever study, understanding, reflection, carries on to the rest of the day. Your rajas is being controlled, and you reduce your tamas, sleep early. So automatically you're not letting your tamasic nature you're not promoting a tamasic nature. That's the best you can do at the level of the vasana. So the chronology of action is the vasana, which becomes a thought, a desire, and action. What is important to note, uh, the power of thought, we don't realize how powerful it is. It's like, during COVID, if you remember, it can be any bacteria for the matter. One bacteria can be so deadly, can be so detrimental, and it can impact the entire personality if we let it grow. Similarly, thought is very, very powerful. We don't realize what we are thinking, what we are doing is important to note. So, what kind of thoughts I'm entertaining in life? So, I need to be conscious of it and work on that. If I don't, it can become a problem in the future where I will not have a control over it. One thought can destroy the, can become a stronger desire, can become action. So I need to be conscious at the subtler level of my personality, at the thought level, at the desire level, at the action level. So this is the chronology of action. This we did earlier. So this is a very important portion or very interesting portion where it talks about how the action comes, how the vasana personality grossifies into an action in the first place. So this is a natural sequence. But what they're talking about, how do you break that pattern, is by operating at each level of our personality. Action, improve it, desire, understand it, and guide it, thought, purify it, vasana, make it conducive. Thank you so much.